What is the cost of greatness?
What is the cost of greatness? Does it cost? Well, I would say to answer my own question of does it cost, yes and no. Because in terms of my thoughts on what it means to be great or how to achieve greatness might be a better way to put the question, right? So if we ask, what's the cost of greatness? Our intention is, well, how do we become great, right? So for me, greatness, the meaning of greatness, has to do with who we are at our deepest core. In other words, for you to be great, to answer it that way, for you to be great, in a sense, you have to be totally in line with that goal, with that kind of path in life that makes you stand out above the rest, right? So that's why I began the question by, does it cost? Because to truly be great, you have to be so in line with that goal that it doesn't feel like a cost, because it's your passion, right? If you do something with like all of your being and it's like it is you, like your path, your goal is what you want more in life, then it won't be a sacrifice. Now, it would cost in that you will naturally get rid of everything that gets in the way because that's what you want the most. So yeah, it will cost you in the sense that you'll let go certain friends, you'll let go certain habits, you won't watch as much TV as most people, right? So you'll give up things that most people won't, but it may not feel like a sacrifice if your goal is so crystal clear that this is like what you truly want, right? And it comes from the depth of your being. Then it won't be so sacrificial, right? It won't necessarily feel like a cost from the subjective realm, right? Even if it's difficult, you might be okay with it. See, that's the difference. So that if you have a deep purpose, you're willing to pay the cost, and therefore, paradoxically, it may not feel like a cost. That's why I began there, right? And the reason as well, how do I put it? Greatness is tied to your being, right? And like what your deepest being sort of wants and desires. The reason that's so important is because when you truly, truly love something and are passionate about something, let's say playing the violin or whatever, I think there's a paradox that most people that are great at something are not trying to, right? You're not competing with anyone else. You just love what you're doing so much, you do it 110% or 1,000%. To be dramatic or hyperbolic, it's like, no, you're just totally focused on what you're doing, and that's why you surpass. Because in fact, comparing yourself or thinking of other people might be a distraction and actually take away energy from doing what you're doing, right? Oh, I'm thinking of like whether you're better than me, and that makes me nervous, and I'm spending mental energy and thinking about you, where I could have just been totally focused on being better, right? I might look at what you're doing to help me be better, but it's not about surpassing you. So I think the greatest people, whether it's or the people that achieve the greatest things, whether it's a violinist or Einstein. Einstein just loved what he was doing. He wasn't trying to be the greatest scientist. He just wanted to know things, and he loved physics, and he wanted to understand the universe, and he liked contemplating reality. So while he was working a regular job, he was contemplating physics for fun. And he wrote his papers, by the way, without a university position. He was working for a patent office, like a regular desk job, and then he'd go home after work and reflect about physics and write his physical formulas, and then he wrote some 5 famous papers in physics, and then he blew up. So he was doing his theoretical physics, on the side for fun. out of joy, out of passion. And that's how he becomes the greatest scientist that we know generally. I mean, there might be other greater scientists that, maybe he just got more publicity, but whatever. Assuming he's the greatest scientist or he's one of the greatest, he was doing it out of pure love, pure passion, right? So to be great, I wouldn't focus on the cost. I would focus on the passion. Can you find that for which you can live and die for, that you're so passionate about it? You're okay doing it all day long. Then you'll be great. And the cost would be something you're willing to pay, right? Just to end with an example, a kind of personal example. I play the cello a bit as a hobby. And I'm not gonna say I'm great or the greatest or anything like that, but I improved so much in a short period of time when I started learning, and I started learning quite late, like in my early 20s, like at 21 years old, I picked up the cello. I learned super quickly, very quickly, to the point that my cello teacher said, "You're learning too quick for me. I'm gonna let you work with my teacher, because I can't keep up with you." Like, I was learning so fast, he would have to do homework to help to teach me better, because I was, surpassing the lesson so quickly, and coming to his classes or sessions, having memorized the whole piece Bach. Within 6 months, I already had Bach pieces memorized. And Bach is one of the hardest composers to play, for example. Right? The reason I improved so much was because I was so moved by the music of Bach and the cello that I would literally sit in my living room, start practicing, close my eyes sometimes, right? Practicing. And then when I'm done, without looking at the time, when I look at how long I'd been sitting, it'd be 8 hours. And I was sitting there with my eyes closed, just playing stuff, effortlessly. Now you would say, "Oh wow, you're so sacrificial, you're so dedicated," right? That's a big cost to play, a big cost, right, to become better. And I'm like, what do you mean? I was having fun. That was like the best time of the day for me, when I could just sit for hours and forget about the time. I literally thought sometimes I was sitting there for an hour. 8 hours passed. So that's passion, right? That's love. So then some people talk about 10,000 hours of practice or something like that, and then you become an expert at something, or you become great at something, right? The reason the greats can do that is because of passion. Right? So it's not like I'm thinking, "Oh, I need to become great or become an expert in this, so I'm gonna, force myself to do, 10 hours a day so I can reach my 10,000 hour limit." It's like, no, I'm just gonna daily do this because I love it, right? So if you're passionate about something and you do it with your whole being, that's how you would likely become great. And it won't matter to you, because the greatness is in the experience, not in being better than other people.
Why does modern life feel so empty?
Why does modern life feel so empty? Oh, that's a good question. There's too much to say about this.
Yes.
I think we need to revamp society altogether and put everything upside down. So it feels empty because everything's backwards. We're not doing things right in society. Especially with the educational system. And how we're brought up. Honestly, I'm a little bit stunted with the question. Not sure how to answer, because there's so many things that could be said, right? But the educational system is obviously off, and then the way we are parented is also flawed, in that, as you might know, there's no rule book for being a good parent. And even though nowadays there has been in the past 20 years a growth of how to be a good parent and things like that, still like guesswork for one. And also, I think what's wrong with society is that we don't think about the individual child often. So when I look at, I'll answer the question this way because it's very specific and concrete. When I look at the way I was raised, to this day, I feel my parents do not understand me. Right? So imagine raising a child you don't understand. So they don't know my being, who or what I am, or what I'm passionate about, what I truly love. So there's no like true empathy or understanding of who or what I am. And that happens since childhood to all of us, right? So most parents don't know their children at all. They don't know their true nature, right? So I think we have to begin with understanding, one, that we're all very individual, and then learning systems that allow us or help us to understand the child, to therefore give the proper education. Going back to education, right? To properly educate, you have to know them, how they learn, what they're passionate about, what they're inclined to do, right? What are their strengths, their weaknesses, and so forth. That's the most efficient way to teach, right? And therefore, society would be much, better off and not feel so horrible and empty if it was catering to our true needs and educating us properly. So the reason we're so empty and unhappy is because we get to adulthood and we're more confused than when we were children, because society has screwed us up and not helped us and gave us all this disjuncted or scattered kind of education that didn't give us any guidance about ourselves even, right? So then our educational system, to go into like what's wrong with it, well, you go through it and do you know yourself better? No. So your parents didn't know you. They didn't know how to raise you, how to educate you. Neither did the school know you and how to educate you. But they didn't even teach you to know yourself. So they didn't educate you properly, period. Nor did they help you in the highest education, which is to know yourself better and how to live your life and how to become great, like the earlier question we talked about, right? That's what education should have been about, right? Like finding your purpose and finding what you're good at and knowing who you are, right? Know thyself, like Socrates talked about, right? That's the most important question. Who am I? We don't even ask that question. People get to college, and if they take a philosophy class, then they might ask the question, who am I? Good question. You should have been asking that at 7 years old, to then know who you are and then know your purpose, right? And then parents in school would do the right thing with the child and feed what's good for their soul, what's good for their being, and therefore not live an empty life. Because then if we get to adulthood and we're confused about life and who we are and what we should do and all this stuff, then you're empty. You're not fulfilled because you don't have a purpose and you don't know who you are. So obviously you're going to be lost and empty. So society just doesn't feed our souls, doesn't feed the deepest parts of ourselves. Society doesn't understand us, including our family and parents. Right? So yeah, we have to learn how to understand the child, who's the foundation of society, right? Every adult was once a child. So if the adults are feeling empty, it's because we started off in the wrong way, right? We didn't educate or bring up the children properly. So that's why all these adults are empty or feeling empty. So yeah, does that answer the question?
That sort of goes into another question that I had. If we're empty in modern life, how do we then go from there to finding fulfillment?
So how do we find fulfillment if we're living in an empty society, a society that makes us empty? Yeah, great question. Well, I'll begin with picking up on that notion of, well, what went wrong? So the answer to the question is, well, I already kind of picked up on one of the essential problems of what went wrong. What is society doing that makes us feel empty? So then the answer is proper education. And if we're not properly educated, then it's on us to kind of re-educate ourselves, right? And fill in all the gaps that we're missing. Most importantly, the education of knowing yourself, or the knowledge of knowing yourself. That should be the primary goal, right? If you want to fill in that gap and live a truly fulfilling life, then the primary question is, who am I? What am I? And what am I doing here, right? What's my purpose? And if you don't know your purpose, then that's your purpose. To figure it out, keep asking the question, and it'll come, especially if you're passionate about it. And then just pay attention, right? Stay aware. Let life sort of feed you the answers. If you're asking the question sort of deep within in your heart, as people might say, right? And then just stay aware and alert to where you might get the answers from, meaning that you could get it from anywhere, someone in the street, a friend, or a TV show or something. If you're having a certain question, it might come to you through any means. At least that's been my experience. So yeah, search for that answer of clarity about who you are, that can then give you a kind of fundamental purpose and, in a sense, function within society that's more authentic to you, right? Because one of my favorite philosophers, Gabriel Marcel, talks about the emptiness being the cause of living in what he calls a functionalized world, kind of mechanical world where we are all like a cog in a machine. So we're playing a function, but it's kind of like a function where society's just using you for a particular purpose, but has nothing to do with your authentic self. So it's like you're forced into a role that you never wanted. So then it's like, oh, you're just doing this, but then you just go through the motions because society demands it of you, or some external forces. So then I would say to solve the emptiness is that, yeah, you should have a role in society, but it should connect to your being, right? So if you choose your role from the depth of you, like we were saying before, from a place of passion that you see, find something in life and society that sort of excites you and feels like, oh yeah, this fills me up, this makes me excited, this makes me feel good, then if it's connected to like the depths of you, which you actually care about, then you can fulfill that role and then have meaning and therefore fullness, have a life that's full, right? And if you ask me, I'm anticipating a possible question. If you ask me, how do you know this kind of role that comes from you in that society? One litmus test, a question. And the question is very simple. If you ask the question, would I do this for free for many hours a day, right? Not being paid. And then being paid would be just like, what's that called? The icing on the cake. Then you might have found your passion. You know what I mean? Like, I think I'm pretty in my path because I can say absolute. I would philosophize for free all day long. In fact, I have been. I've been poor already and still philosophize all day long with anyone. I've had philosophical conversations on the train or at a bar, at a party, any situation. I philosophize because it's me. It's literally who I am and what I care about, what I'm passionate about. So would I do it for free? Yes, I do it for free all the time. So I found a path that I can make money doing what I would do for free anyways, right? So I went and studied philosophy and got my master's and PhD. And now I, through a long process, I got a professor position, full-time teaching at a university. So I'm lucky that I was able to manifest that and create that situation. But I would do it for free. So that's how you get the fullness. So like now, not only, am I getting the fullness of enjoying my job, but I'm getting paid on top of it, so even more joy, right? And I'm playing a role in society as well. So that's how you fill it, that emptiness, or at least one way to look at it.